Hello, thanks for joining us. This is Nationwide. I'm Ruth Aguela. We'll begin on a cheering note. Nigeria has won a judgment in the $11 billion PNID case delivered in London today. Judge Robin Noels of the Business and Property Court in London ruled that the award was obtained by fraud and what has happened in the case is contrary to public policy. The court dismissed the $6.6 billion arbitrary judgment against Nigeria, of which interest have increased to $11.5 billion, which was fraudulently obtained by Briefcase Company Process and Industrial Development, that is PNID Limited, over a purported 2010 deal to develop a gas processing plant. PNID claimed that Nigeria violated terms of its agreement by failing to provide gas for the power plant it wants to build for the country. The fraudulent award exposed Nigeria to a potentially costly fine before the Federal Ministry of Justice approached courts in Nigeria and the UK to seek redress. All right, we'll join our correspondent live now from London, Hawa Yusuf, to tell us more on the proceedings from the London court on the suit by Nigeria against attempts by PNID Limited to fraudulently obtain $11 billion from Nigeria over purportedly failed gas proceeding deals. Hello, Hawa. Thank you for joining us on the news.
Hello there. The PI and this legal recourse, if we will recall, resulted in an arbitral award against Nigeria in January 2017. And the tribunal ruled that Nigeria should pay P&ID Limited $6.6 billion in damages, along with pre- and post-judgment interest at 7%.
Okay.
Following the judgment, Nigeria applied for an extension of time and a relief from sanctions, which was granted by Judge Ross Cranston at that time of the Business and Property Courts of England and Wales in September 2020.
Okay, Hawa, were there any consequences, for the company's attempt to defraud the country?
Well, this is a legal question, and there was no witness at the judgment. So there was no Nigerian representative who will be able to give answers to these questions. However, it was just a 3-minute judgment, so it was handed down by Justice Robin Noels, you had earlier mentioned. So we didn't spend any time in the court. They just handed down the judgment, and there was no representative from Nigeria or any legal practitioner that can give us answer to that question.
Okay, and just before I let you go, now I'm sure you're aware this is a legal battle that lasted more than 5 years before having this landmark judgment that we got today. What is the implication for Nigeria, and how do you think this will help shape future dealings for the country?
Well, Nigeria countered the gas deal, as you will recall, as a fraudulent scheme, claiming that P&ID officials resorted to bribery to secure the contract. However, P&ID vehemently denied these allegations and accused the Nigerian government of propagating false allegations and wild conspiracy theories. So I don't know as today that judgment is in favor of Nigeria, whether P&ID will seek further redress in this regard. So we have to await and see what next steps they will take.
All right, thank you so much, Hawa Yusuf, for your time. Thank you for joining us on the news. We do appreciate. Thank you.
A pleasure.
Right, and still on legal matters, but to shift our attention to Nigeria, the Supreme Court has reserved judgment after hearing all the appeals filed before it against the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court, which affirmed the election of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress. Judiciary correspondent Austin Ayembe reports.
Before the Supreme Court are three appeals emanating from the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court. The first one is by the presidential candidate of People's Democratic Party, while the second one is by Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of Labour Party. The third appeal came from APM. The 7-man panel of justices commenced sitting with the hearing of two motions regarding the appeal filed by the presidential candidate of PDP, Atiku Abubakar. The first application filed and moved by the presidential candidate of PDP, Atiku Abubakar, prayed the court to admit deposition from the United States of America on the discrepancies in the certificate the president presented to INEC during the 2023 presidential election. Adopting the motion with 20 grounds, counsel to Atiku Abubakar, Chris Uche, senior advocate of Nigeria, urged the court to consider the constitutional provisions and do substantial justice in the appeal, considering the fact that the issue in the deposition seeks to be tendered borders on discrepancies of the certificate presented by the person occupying the highest office in the country, and urged the court to allow the application. Counsel to INEC, President Tinubu, and All Progressive Congress enjoined the court to dismiss the application as they were not party to the process that produced the disposition that the appellant seeks to tender, as it was a mere testimony given in the appellant's law office in the United States of America. The second motion was filed by the respondents, who prayed the court to dismiss the application for lacking in merit, more so that it is not in tandem with the provisions of the Electoral Act. After hearing the applications, the appellant Atiku Abubakar, through his counsel Chris Uche, senior advocate of Nigeria, proceeded to adopt the substantive appeal, which challenged the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court, while the respondents also adopted their replies to the appeal. The court thereafter proceeded to listen to the appeal filed by the Allied People's Movement, which seeks interpretation of the Constitution on the alleged double nomination of the Vice President Kashim Shettima. The panel of justices presiding over by Justice Inyang Okoro sought from the counsel to APM what they stand to gain if the judgment is in their favor, having not come second or third in the election. It went further to draw the attention of APM to the judgment it delivered on the matter. Consequently, the appellant withdrew the appeal and it was struck out. The Supreme Court also had the appeal filed by the presidential candidate of Labour Party, Peter Obi, who challenged the decisions of the Presidential Election Petition Court. He prayed the Supreme Court to upturn the verdict. His counsel, Livy Uzuaku, senior advocate of Nigeria, and respondents adopted their brief of argument. Having heard all the appeals, the panel of 7 justices decided to reserve judgment as a date shall be communicated to parties. From the Supreme Court, Austin Ayembe, NTA News.
All right, we're not done with legal matters. We'll flip backward. Let's go back to the $11 billion PNID case that Nigeria won the judgment. Well, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has applauded today's judgment rendered by Judge Robin Noels of the Business and Property Court in London, awarding a landmark victory to the federal government of Nigeria over a firm known as Process and Industry Development, that is PNID Limited. A statement by the Special Advisor to the President of Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngelale, says, following Judge Noel's dismissal of the $11.5 billion value of award plus accumulated interest previously won by PNID over a failed 2010 deal to allegedly build a gas processing plant on the grounds that the award was obtained by fraud. President Tinubu commends the UK court for prioritizing the merits of the case above all other considerations. He says, and I quote, "This landmark judgment proves conclusively that nation-states will no longer be held hostage by economic conspiracies between private firms and solitarily corrupt officials who conspire to extort and indebt the very nations they swear to defend and protect." We turn to other issues. Vice President Kashim Shettima will meet with the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, at the World Food Prize Foundation's Norman Borlaug International Dialogue in Des Moines, Iowa, United States of America. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President, Media and Communications Office of the Vice President, Stanley Wacha, the Vice President Shettima will deliver a keynote speech at the event's plenary session on Tuesday. He will later participate in the African Agriculture Dialogue on special agro-industrial processing zones and in fireside chat with the AFDB president. The Borlaug Dialogue brings together individuals to address global food security and nutrition, and Vice President Shettima will use the platform to speak to Nigeria's strong agricultural sector potentials and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's vision for the sector. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has led Nigeria's delegation to the first meeting of the African Group at the 147th Interparliamentary Union Assembly holding in Angola. The 147th IPU Assembly, being hosted by the National Assembly of Angola, will provide a platform for parliamentarians, partner organizations and experts to share best practices and commit to peace, justice and strong institutions. The theme is closely linked to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 16. Peace, justice and strong institutions, a key enabler of the entire development agenda. We'll bring you full details in subsequent bulletin. President Bola Tinubu has assured that his team is already working on the workability of the consumer credit facility promised by his administration to discourage corruption, particularly in the civil service. The president was at the 29th edition of the National Economic Summit holding in Abuja. State House correspondent Musbahuddin Wahab reports that the theme of the summit is pathways to sustainable economic transformation and inclusion.
For the administration charting a new course for economic prosperity, this assemblage is equally a priority, and the man in front would not miss it. It's also a convergence of interest as participants from the private and public sectors, chief executives, and other top-level decision-makers are here to lend voices towards setting agenda for the nation's economic transformation. The potentials are great, but the realities are yet gloomy. But then, the summit identifies declining naira value, low access to foreign exchange, multiplication of taxes, and MSME's multi-dimensional complexities among the hurdles along the pathway to the nation's economic greatness.
With more than 100 million of us being multidimensionally poor, there are potentially more risks of stagnation and distress if a low growth and low investment era persists. We know a multi-trillion-dollar economy is viable within a decade of serious reforms, consistent economic action, and deliberate institutional reforms.
The economic realities are currently below expectations, with less than 2,000 naira per capita and 43% of the citizens below poverty lines. But the man at the center, with these forward-looking ideas, says the solutions are in the works with bold economic decisions taken so far.
We have all felt the pain of these reforms. Soon, we shall begin to reap the rewards. I believe in the definition of our profession that I inherit the asset and liability of my predecessor. The framework has been put in place to ensure that these obligations are met in due course. My government is not blind to the challenges several of you are facing in the financial markets. I can only allay these concerns by revealing that we have a good line of sight for the additional foreign exchange liquidity that is required to restore market confidence. And we are going to do that.
President Tinubu promises the takeoff of a new student loan in January, construction of affordable homes, among other transformative policies and programs to strengthen the economy.
A $1 trillion economy is possible by year 2026. And a $3 trillion economy is also possible within this decade. The future is calling, and this administration will not hesitate to seize the opportunity of this moment. Our finest destiny is awaiting us all. Let Nigerians breathe a sigh of renewed hope and confidence.
For him, looking back is a distraction, as he now expects workable ideas from this high-level economic gathering for clearer pathways to economic transformation. In Abuja, Musbao and Wahab, NTA News.
Developing countries are the biggest victims of the speedy transition being clamored for by developed countries, who are the main contributors to the greenhouse gas emissions devastating the climate. APO Secretary General Farouk Ibrahim reiterates that energy is the biggest catalyst for economic growth and development, adding that sugarcoating the realities will not solve the energy poverty in the continent. Lydia Sampson reports on the key takeaways from the third biennial International Conference on Hydrocarbon Science and Technology holding in Abuja.
Secretary General African Petroleum Producers Organization (APO), the Ministers of State Petroleum Resources, Oil, and that of Gas are on the same page with industry players that fossil fuel cannot be jettisoned because of its many derivatives and the ripple effects on developing countries. They agree that unless the continent rids its people of energy poverty, poverty alleviation will continue to be a mirage.
There is technology that will allow you to remove that carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and bury it somewhere. And if you do that, you're reducing the intensity of emissions outside.
The whole world is going towards technology. And I think that my own expectation, at the end of this particular conference, is for us to be able to come up with some homegrown solution.
It is imperative that we focus on tackling the issues of energy transition, sustainability, and energy security.
Industry players also emphasize their pivotal role in the sustainable economic development of the continent.
The impact of the divestment of oil and gas industry will be significant, as it presents a good avenue for Nigeria and indigenous companies to make a bold statement.
The industry's growing emphasis on sustainability, underscoring the necessity to attract, retain, and upskill our workforce.
We are into partnership with reputable institutions, organizations, and professional bodies in equipping players within and outside the industry for the eventual challenges ahead.
They acknowledge that the industry is at an intersection of complex challenges occasioned by financial obstacles erected by anti-fossil fuel activists, and despite the challenges, they are optimistic of a hopeful panorama in the industry. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
The Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, is urging the National Assembly to commence the process of amendment for the 2022 Electoral Act. Now, this is part of recommendations by the Election Observation Team of IPAC to Liberia. Timothy Yusuf will tell us more about it.
The mission undertaken by IPAC.
With the support of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, some members of IPAC were in Liberia to observe and take notes about how elections are conducted in Liberia. Briefing on the outcome of the election held on October 10, 2023. IPAC believes that
we must change our orientation. We must believe in the country, over and above money and other, ephemeral things that are not really important.
The council insists Nigeria's political stakeholders could still demand further amendments from the lawmakers towards ensuring electoral integrity.
It pays to be committed to this country. Let us be committed to our country, because without it we can get nowhere. But the laws are very important.
The IPAC team observed that eligible voters in Liberia were well informed about the importance of focusing on issues such as voter education, environmental awareness, and the rule of law. Out of the population of about 5.4 million Liberians, some 2.4 million registered voters got the opportunity to elect one president, 15 senators, 73 members of House of Representatives, and voting in 5,890 polling units. Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has reaffirmed his commitment to enhance STEM education and promote innovative and technological advancement as drivers of economic growth. Our correspondent, Ajibola Christopher, reports that this was the message of the president during the 6th and 7th convocation ceremony of the Federal University, Abuja.
President Tinubu, represented by the Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, Zephaniah Bitrus Gisalo, praised the achievement of the university's governing board since the institution's reopening in 2012. The university expanded from 11 programs to 53 across 6 faculties, underlining its commitment to enhancing education. President Tinubu emphasized that education is the cornerstone of societal development, unlocking the potentials of Nigeria's youth population to secure a prosperous future. His administration remains steadfast in reforming the education sector and eliminating disruptions caused by striking among tertiary institution workers.
Let me say education is one of the priorities of the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, Renew Hope. So education is renew hope. Education, renew hope. Renew hope is education, and we'll get there. So this is one of the university, the best university, federal university we can see.
To also charge the students to face the world and go and make the difference. Let them know you are a graduate of Federal University Lokoja.
Issue to be good ambassadors of Federal University Lokoja and ensure that you strive to uphold the morals and values of this noble university.
White-collar jobs are far-fetched. We therefore urge you explore the entrepreneurial field, which is the new order. That is why your training has been both diverse and versatile.
The Federal University Lokoja conferred degrees on 2,738 graduates and recognized 7 distinguished Nigerians with honorary degrees for their contributions to nation's development. In Lokoja, Ajibola Christopher, NTA News.
Let's look at how medical experts have advocated increased participation in breast cancer awareness, regularly engaging in self and clinical examinations and early presentation to hospital to fight against breast cancer in society. Rafai Animashaun Badmos reports that breast cancer is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths, especially in women. Let's see that.
Consultant radiation oncologist says the aim of World Breast Cancer Month is to reduce the stigma associated with breast cancer, encourage early detection, promote research and treatment advancement, and improve the quality of life for those living with the disease.
But the best way to discover breast cancer, is by regular self-breast examination. By the time they discover breast cancer in a patient in the hospital, it might have gone far.
I had no cause to it. When I took to the doctor, they read it and I had no issues. But since then, I've always taken it upon myself to always self-examine.
I do it every month. And my mom too helps me too. Whenever I feel this solid lump in my breast, if I'm having my ovulation.
Breast Cancer Awareness Month, popularly called Pink October, people are expected to adopt pink color and display pink ribbon to raise awareness about breast health in Ibadan. Rofia Animashaun Badmos, NTA News.
All right, we're still in the Awareness Month, And we have our correspondent waiting to give us more update on that issue. Very important. Rufai Animashaun Badmos, please go ahead. Tell us what you know.
Thank you, Ruth. Breast Cancer Awareness Month is a global campaign dedicated to educating individuals about breast cancer and encouraging proactive measures for early detection. It is also aimed to empower women to take charge of their breast and provide a platform for advocacy. I have here with me a psychosocial assistance to patients and survivors to enable them with the after effects of the disease. Her name is Dr. Elizabeth Akin Odonye from the University College Hospital, Ibadan. What is psychosocial support for breast cancer patients and survivors?
When patients are diagnosed with cancer, they often experience a wide range of challenges that could affect their mental health, their interpersonal relationship with others in terms of social relations. It could also affect their emotions and as well as their spirituality. So psychosocial support for cancer patients and their survivors, therefore, refers to all of those supports we give to patients to help them adjust adequately to the cancer diagnosis and the treatment. And this will start from effective distress screening, which we call the 6th vital sign, assessing for distress. Because when you do not assess for this distress, then there is actually it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what is wrong. It is not enough to just give them a blanket diagnosis and say every patient that has cancer or breast cancer must experience distress. But it's important to identify the specific distress so that they can be referred to these different specialists that can treat them for those things that are giving them concerns.
Thank you. How have the women taken advantage of this form of treatment?
Maybe where I want to actually start from is identifying the fact that we do not have enough support, psychosocial support for cancer patients in Nigeria. In the University College Hospital, Ibadan, we have a structure, the psycho-oncology unit at the radiation oncology department, where these patients can access care. But this type of unit ought to be replicated in other teaching hospitals or wherever cancer patients are being treated. This type of unit ought to be replicated so that patients can have access. In this hospital, in University College Hospital, Ibadan, we have the psycho-oncology units where breast cancer patients have what we call the breast cancer support groups, where they have their monthly meeting. And what that group does is help them assess support from the healthcare providers and from the patients themselves. We also provide individual counseling in order to give the patients a safe space to express their emotions, and we teach them how to problem solve. Because sometimes when patients experience breast cancer, they have a lot of challenges that they are not so sure about how to address. And one of the core problems that we also have is that of breast prosthesis from after mastectomy. What do I use? And so I personally call on the government to also assist in this regard in creating more psycho-oncology units in our different hospitals.
That is all from Ibadan. It is back to our Lagos studios.
Rufia. Environmentalists have called on stakeholders involved in national economic recovery to take into cognizance the environment and make climate-friendly policies in their march towards restoring the nation's urban economic drive. These were their views while answering pauses from environment correspondent Lanre Bilei.
Urban migration is inevitable, says socio-economic experts, who pointed out the fact that cities are drivers of socio-economic growth and recovery of a nation. This developmental drive has increased urban centers' population and providing resources to cope with the rising population has been an unending struggle. This invariably has affected the city's environment. Bearing in mind the state of most cities all over the world and fragile economic states caused by the post-COVID era, the run towards economic recovery seems to be uppermost in most nations' agenda of government and Nigeria is not an exception. Environmentalists concerned about this have preferred solutions to how economic recovery can be carried out without affecting the city's habitat.
Low carbon footprint economic systems must be developed in the habitats. And these can obviously include recycling of waste. There's a tremendous amount of value in recycling different aspects of the waste, from the plastics, which can be recycled into many other products.
Now, the environment is limited, it's finite, but our needs are infinite. And we want to see that in our use of the environment for housing, for agriculture, for industries, we do not end up destroying the environment for our needs, such that when we now need the environment to thrive, we have already wrongly used it.
Environmentalists therefore advocate the linking of resource-hungry economic activities from environmental pressures by decoupling gross domestic product growth from resources, since many socioeconomic systems depend on manufactured goods that brings with it greenhouse gases, waste, water, and air pollutants that have direct impact on human well-being. In Lagos, Larry Bileyi, NTA News.
Broadcast regulators in the West African sub-region have agreed to establish a uniform regulatory network to protect the sub-region from disinformation and other ethical infringements capable of truncating peaceful coexistence. Joel Pokbola reports that this is part of consensus reached at a stakeholders roundtable organized by the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC.
With the increasing weaponization of information and disinformation spreading across the globe, experts say maintaining peace and stability in the West African sub-region must be guaranteed by expanding the scope of regulatory framework. With the agreement by these broadcast regulators to establish the West African Broadcast Regulatory Authorities Network, WABRAN, to reshape the media landscape for the good of the region, the unwanted narrative will change.
Now with technology, you are social media. So, content is available in Nigeria, it's also available in Ghana, Republic, simultaneously, almost immediately. So, how do we regulate this? How do we have common ground for saying a content is not fit for broadcast? And that's the whole essence of this.
With over 8 countries participating in the discussion, including representatives of the ECOWAS Commission, stakeholders say the resolution is halved as it will sanitize and reshape the media landscape for optimal performance in accordance with global best practice, taking into cognizance national and regional security. The Director General of NBC, whose agency is spearheading the initiative, says a more formidable, secured and prosperous sub-region will emerge with the new collaboration.
We need to come up with a framework, we need to have guidelines, we need to follow the process to have it signed by various heads of state and implemented across board to protect our media space. Europe and North America have taken those steps, and we find out we're lagging behind because we've not come out with a policy framework.
Other issues raised at the roundtable focus on the need to have a common code for social media regulation in the sub-region and the need to promote African local contents. In Lagos, Joel Pokbola, NTA News.
That's it from here. Nationwide continues in Kaduna after this break.
Making the economy more robust by lowering transport costs shall be key. In this regard, we have opened a new chapter in public transportation through the development of cheaper, safer, compressed natural gas, CNG, buses across the nation. These buses will operate at a fraction of current fuel prices, positively affecting transport fare. The new CNG conversion kits will start coming in very soon, as all hands are on deck to fast-track the usual lengthy procurement process.
The office of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON, is organizing a 3-day protocol and security seminar for female federal legislators, wives of legislators, female members of the Federal Executive Council, wives of governors, female deputy governors, female local government chairmen, wives of traditional rulers, and female top government functionaries. The 3-day seminar holds between Thursday 26th of October to Saturday 28th of October at the Banquet Hall, State House, Abuja at 9 a.m. daily. Facilitators are drawn from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Intelligence Agency, Office of the National Security Advisor, the Nigerian Police Force, Nigerian Immigration Service, and the Nigerian Customs Service. This seminar is strictly by invitation. Announcer Busola Kokoyi, SSA Media, to the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The Honorable Minister, Federal Ministry of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Dr. Bosun Tijani, cordially invites the general public to this year's Digital Nigeria Conference, Exhibition and Awards with the theme, Harnessing Digital Technologies for Job Creation, Inclusive Economic Growth and Sustainability. The event, which will have discussions centered around sub-themes like emerging technologies, blockchain, metaverse, AI, GovTech, Innovation Challenge, Consumer Tech, Creative Economy and others, is scheduled to hold as follows. Date 24th to 26th October 2023, time 9 a.m. daily. Venue International Conference Center, ICC, Abuja. For more details, please log on to www.digitalnigeria.gov.ng. Announcer Kashifu Yunwa Abdullahi, CCIE, DG and CEO, NIDA.
Joining us, you are watching Nationwide live on the network service of the NTA. Welcome to Kaduna. The Nigerian Defense Academy cadets have emerged as the only international contingent who challenged their Chinese counterparts at the maiden edition of the People's Liberation Army Navy Deep Sea Warrior International Seamanship competition held at Qingdao Sailing Center in China. Muhammad Umar Ajingi reports.
The establishment of the 7 cadets, comprising of 6 male, 1 female cadets, spent days in China, participating in the week-long Deep Sea Warrior International Seamanship competition, as the only cadet from across the world has succeeded in challenging their Chinese counterparts, winning a number of laurels.
But the true essence of this week extends beyond competitions and sightseeing. It lies in the connections we forged with fellow cadets, both from China and around the world. The opportunity to engage with students from different cultures and backgrounds has been invaluable.
They were able to compete well at this international level because of the recent change in their curriculum, which exposes them to modern warfare with the right skills to fit into any challenge in the world. I am Muhammad Umar Ajingi, NTA News.
And that's all on our package from here. We'll rejoin Ruth again in Abuja. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Salamatu. Zamfara State Government recently announced the revocation of operational licenses of all private schools operating in the state. Jamila Ibrahim examines some of the major reasons by the state government for taking this decision and how some stakeholders are reacting to the development.
Though there is no official record of the actual number of private schools currently operating in Zamfara, the State Ministry of Education, Science and Technology said only less than 500 of them have ever obtained operational licenses from the relevant authority. According to the Education Ministry, these, among other irregularities, prompted the Zamfara State Government to suspend the operational licenses of all the private schools operating in the state, effective from 13th October 2023.
The suspension is as a result of deliberate attempt to improve the quality of services being rendered by the schools to the general public. Verification exercise carried out by the ministry and reports by parents have highlighted areas of concern on the effective running of the private schools, which negates the main objectives of their establishment.
It is a welcome development because we cannot go on like this. You need an enabling environment for pupils to be able to sit down well, comfortably. Education cannot go well in a mushroom classroom.
As Zamfara State government says, only private schools that meet at least the minimum standard will be allowed to operate at the end of the ongoing regularization exercise in Gusau. Jamilu Ibrahim, NTA News.
All right, to get more details from that issue, we'll join our correspondent, Jamilu Ibrahim, live this time around. He wants to have an interaction with the Zamfara State Commission of Education, Science and Technology. Jamilu, please go ahead if you can hear me.
Thank you, Ruth. We are live in Gusau, Zamfara State. As rightly highlighted in the background report, it is now more than a week Zamfara State government announced the suspension of the operational licenses of all the private schools operating in the state. Some of the reasons for this action, according to the State Ministry of Education, Science and Technology, include the operation of some of the schools without approval by the relevant bodies that are responsible for the quality, safety and suitability of the schools, among other irregularities. And to this end, the ministry has issued some guidelines and standards which the schools must meet before they could be reissued licenses. And the ministry has also set up a task force which is saddled with the responsibility of ensuring compliance with these guidelines. To discuss more on this important issue with me is Zamfara State Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology, Malam Wadatoma Dawaki. Sir, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
Sir, it is now more than 1 week after the pronouncement by Zamfara State government on the suspension of the operational licenses of all the private schools operating in the state. How far have you gone in the regularization exercise?
Thank you very much for this very important question. In collaboration with the proprietors of private schools whom we have been working together as partners in progress, we have already, dished out forms that are going to be used for registration of licenses for those that have not registered. And then for those who want to revalidate their licenses, they are also coming to the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology to collect those forms to enable them carry out the necessary processes that will enable them to revalidate their licenses.
What are the guidelines and the standards as far as this new arrangement is concerned?
There are certain things that we put in place that we feel should be very important. One, we look at the quality of the environment that the schools are going to be established. We look at the quality of the teachers that are going to be engaged in the teaching. We look at the quality of materials that are supposed to be there. Then we look at, are these schools licensed or are they not licensed? If they are not licensed, they should come and get their licenses. If already they have been licensed but they have not renewed their license, we expect that they should come back and renew those licenses.
To what extent do you think this measure will address the concerns of the state government and indeed people of the state concerning the operations of the private schools?
It is to a great extent that will happen, simply because if you go around the town here, the state capital, you will see schools that are called private schools and even to that aspect, international schools. But you see them in garages, in two-bedroom flats, and in places that are unconducive for teaching and learning, and they are called international schools. So because everything that we'll do to sanitize, we will do to sanitize the system, will bring succor to the parents who pay out their money to ensure that their children get quality education. And that's very important.
To what level have you involved stakeholders like proprietors of private schools, association, and other relevant stakeholders?
From the word go, that's up in issue. Before we even started the issue of suspension of the licenses, we invited the proprietors to a meeting and we met about 3 times with them to ensure that we map out strategies that will ensure smooth conduct of this exercise without any hindrance. So they are together with us and we are moving together with them and we are partnering together to ensure that what we did, there are no hiccups, no misunderstandings, and I believe they are partners in progress and we are all aiming towards the same goal of giving quality education to the Nigerian child.
Thank you very much. I've been speaking with Zamfara State Commissioner of Education, Science and Technology, Malam Wadatoma Dawaki, on the recent suspension of licenses of all the private schools operating in Zamfara State. And that is all we can take from this end. We are now handing over to our Benin Network Center for the continuation of the news nationwide. Thank you.
To Benin. Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki has appealed to the Central Bank of Nigeria to render financial assistance to those whose major occupation is agriculture and related activities in sustaining livelihoods of rural communities. He stated this when he granted audience to the new branch controller, CBN Benin, Michael Mbeze, in his office. Goodluck Enaini has the details.
Currently, Edo State has a total of 18 banks, with 106 branches in operations across the state, meeting the financial needs of the citizens. This for Governor Obaseki is not enough, so he is making a case for the citizens, especially those in the rural areas.
We hope that we will be working with you, Rosa, to strengthen these operators who are providing services in underbanked and remote communities of our state. As you know, there are few local governments without any bank branches. They've traditionally not had bank branches. As a state, we're very interested and keen on what's going on, how to promote first diversification of the economy in the state, across the state.
Welcome the policy reforms of the CBN, such as the e-banking, which he says the state government has fully subscribed to, by introducing the resident identification card tied to e-Naira that enables citizens to do business with the state governments. Mr. Mbeze, who recently resumed office as the branch controller, appealed to the state government to sustain the existing relationship, as he promised to consider the requests of the governor. In Benin, Goodluck Enaini, NTA News.
And that's it from this end. Time for another round of messages. And when we return, Nationwide continues in Port Harcourt studio with Jenny Bassi standing by.
When you think about hospitality and affordable luxury away from home, then you talk about Sharon Ultimate Hotels, a secured and serene environment that offers kingly services such as 24-hour room service, impeccable security with CCTV surveillance, parking lots, free Wi-Fi internet service, free complimentary breakfast, restaurants that offers continental and local dishes, well-equipped fitness center with instructors, swimming pool, 350 capacity multi-purpose hall, laundry service, pastry corner, mini mart, and our suites are breathtaking. For reservation, locate us at plot 1710 Tafawa Balewa Way, Area 3, Garikia, Abuja. Sharon Ultimate Hotels, the ultimate place.